Welcome to this month's Town Administrators Report. I'm David Watts Jr., and we're back on Zoom for this report. With me from Town Hall is Steve Mayo, our Town Administrator. Steve, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, and happy St. Patrick's to you, David.
That's right. We are taping this on St. Patrick's Day.
My green tie, my jacket's green. I don't know if it shows up, but it is green. So we're trying to celebrate the Irish for my wife and children anyway.
And after 2 days of intense cold, we actually have spring weather today.
We have spring weather, and I think we might point out that there's no problem with David or I or the great people at WCAT. We're not in the studio because of some renovations going on. It has nothing to do with us. That wasn't COVID related, so don't want people to be upset about that.
Putting in new equipment for a better WCAT.
Great. So
and they can use that tagline if they wish.
People get to see my messy cabinets behind me. That's all right.
So this is our second of three programs on the upcoming annual town meeting, which is going to be Saturday, May 8th.
Yes.
Beginning at 8 a.m.
Yes.
And we will be in the field house and the outside tent once again.
Correct. And thank you for WCAT for making that happen, because people can certainly follow at home and then maybe come down when they see their favorite article coming, or come and join us. We actually just received, and I'm looking for it, I put it somewhere, if you print it out, we just received guidance from the state on town meetings, and the guidance is exactly the same guidance as we had for our previous two town meetings during the COVID pandemic, and those worked very well. No issues were attributed to town meeting. So it'll be the same setup, socially distanced masks. There'll be plenty of hand sanitizer. People can come in and out as they wish. And we're actually going to enhance some of at least the audio and the visual a little bit better for people that maybe had a little bit more of an issue seeing everything. So we apologize for that. Certainly isn't easy doing these meetings during the pandemic and making sure we're socially distant, but we succeeded very well. Question I get all the time about town meeting, David, is that why can't we have a completely virtual town meeting? And if we were a representative town meeting, which I may be open to, I know that my host here maybe isn't as open as I am to that suggestion.
I'm on record as being against that idea.
If we did have a representative town meeting, and we'd know that these 70 people, just using a number of 10 per precinct for sake of our purposes, we know who they were, then we could have a virtual or a Zoom town meeting, but we can't because we're an open town meeting. So that is why, and in our system of government, to move forward and create a budget and what have you, that needs to be done. So I think at our last meeting we did kind of go through the budget.
Yep.
I am happy to report that as of the 22nd, which is Monday right after this meeting, all of the budgets will be presented to the town council for approval. As of next Thursday, the 25th, all of the budgets and departments will be before the finance committee for their review. And really no surprises. We came in, where I had anticipated we would back when we had our tri-board meeting back in October. So I think that we are in fairly good shape for next year based on what we know. There's a lot of moving parts out there, including the recently passed American Rescue Plan by the federal government, and how does that unpack and how does that affect us remains to be seen, because we don't have the actual guidance yet on that. But I do think that for Wakefield, that will be positive. So I'm very happy that together we were able to work through this, and it looks like we have certainly some better days ahead, and certainly as long as people continue to pay attention and kind of watch their distance, and even those that are double vaccinated, kind of make sure we keep this going so we can hit that herd immunity sometime over the summer and really start to really get back to normal, probably in the fall.
I think people will be very happy to see that happen.
Yes.
You know, Well, the other thing, going back to last month just briefly, is we also are still some time away from knowing what the state contribution is going to be, both at the municipal level and at the school level.
Right. Yeah, we are still working on the House One budget. And that is the governor's budget. They call it the House One budget because it's presented to the House of Representatives first. And those numbers have not moved, have not changed. There really hasn't even been much of debate on it, which is typical of this time of year. Those debates at the House will start within the next couple of weeks. It'll then go to the Senate. I would love to think we would get a little bit more money for Chapter 70. I think our increase in Chapter 70 from the state was a woeful 1% or so. Hopefully there is some money in the federal Rescue America Act that will give the state some more money that could trickle to us on Chapter 70. I know I've spoken, I know superintendents of Lyons has spoken, members of the town council and school committee have spoken with our state delegation, trying to get a little bit more money in that area, because it'd be nice. I mean, if our costs of providing education were only going up 1.5%, I would say, okay, 1.5% maybe is fair, but they're not. They're not. And we're going to see a real concentrated effort, every community is next year, on making up for some of the learning loss that occurred this year via the pandemic, despite all the great work done by the teachers, particularly Wakefield in a hybrid model, had kids in the classroom quicker than most and did everything they could. There's still no substitute for 5 days a week, full day in the classroom.
Right.
And we will get back there at some point, but we need to make up for that. And hopefully Department of Education and the state sees it that way. So I'm hopeful.
One hopes. The other area that we haven't addressed yet is capital. And I know people get very involved in that one every single year.
They do. Yeah.
They nitpick.
They nitpick, and that's okay. That's what town meeting is all about.
Absolutely.
I got to say that our capital planning committee has done a great job. Our process is that every department head is approached and is allowed to say, hey, what our department needs. Of course, a department like DPW, in charge of all the buildings, has a huge litany of items that they're looking at, whether it be a new roof over here, a new vehicle over here. Of course, police and fire need issues. The schools have issues that they need, from projectors to windows, right? So all of these items are presented to our DPW director, Joe Conley, who does a great job managing it. And then they all go to the capital planning committee, and the capital planning committee actually looks at almost at every single request, line item by line item, do a great job. And they start in January, and they're ready to wrap up and present their findings and their recommendation to the town council on Monday. Now, one thing that I and the town council had promised capital planning last year was that when the pandemic came and we were really not sure about what was going to happen, we actually we have about a $2 million budget for capital planning last few years. That has ratcheted up over the years. I think, David, you'll remember years ago it was 250 grand. And
yeah, and we argued vociferously over that.
Yeah. So we've moved that up, and it's been around $2 million a year. We've been moving up to that. And last year we actually had to trim a number of budgets, including capital, and that got trimmed back to $1 million. So one of the town council's priorities, finance committee priority, my priority was to bring that back to the $2 million level for fiscal year 22, which we're going to decide. And I'm happy to report that that is what's coming in at. It's coming in at right around $2 million. Mm-hmm. So they took that and they ran with it. What I have asked capital planning to do as well this year, and only because we don't really know what's happening. I mean, the worst thing for me in budgeting is uncertainty. And there is still a level of uncertainty for next fiscal year, although I'm getting more and more sure all the time that I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. So I've asked them within that $2 million to name some items, a tier 1 or a tier 2. So we'll prioritize the tier 1, which is a little bit over $1 million first, and then do the tier 2, just in case something happens. Something happens worldwide, nationwide, statewide, so we have to pump the brakes on a few things. So they have certainly done this, and really great work by the Capital Planning Committee. So anyway, some of the highlights on that are, 3 police cruisers. We have to get into a point where we replace our police cruisers. So that's, we only did 1 last year, so we're going back to that 3 this year. An emergency generator at the Greenwood Fire Station. New boilers at the senior center. Woodville Playground. Woodville Playground was deferred last year, unfortunately, and there are actually some safety issues there, which we were able to fix quickly, but not long term. My kind of philosophy is I like to do a playground every year. Playgrounds are not cheap today when they're handicapped accessible. They are rubberized, bottoms and everything, rubberized ground and everything, safe equipment. So
Well, yes, that's what they did with Greenwood last year.
Exactly.
And
2 years
if anyone wants to see what a modern playground looks like, come down and check out Greenwood.
It's a fabulous playground. So Woodville Playground, and I will tell you that what a wonderful and concerned school department administration at Woodville, a very concerned and active PTO that lobbied for this, and we assured them that, hey, it's going to happen, and it is on the list in tier 1. That's $140,000. It'll be fabulous for the young kids and for the teachers and for the adults and grandparents like us, right, to watch the kids play. Sure. Another highlight is at the Hartshorn House. The Hartshorn House is in need of a roof replacement, and it's not just a roof that I would put on my house. It has to be a historically accurate roof. So that's in there for next year for $50,000. It's kind of a feel-good thing from one of our gems. New projectors at the schools that we need, particularly very important today. That's about $150,000. So we go through this. There's a lot of good things here, and I'm thrilled to get that back to the $2 million mark. And even though people on the Capital Planning Committee requested that, can we go a little higher? I said, I just got you back from $1 million. Stop being greedy. No, they're very passionate about what they do. So actually, that's kind of an exciting one there. So I'm happy to see that that's getting back to that level. And they're all worthy projects. There's nothing that I would say that is not worthy of doing. Whether it's new windows in this building, but it's like on your home. Home, you've got to make some priorities. You've got to make some decisions, and we never say no. We just defer if we can to another time.
Yeah, just not this year.
Just not this year.
Yeah. What else can we expect that people will want to really get their teeth into at town meeting?
Okay, actually, this town meeting is going to be a little bit bland, I would say, and frankly, I'm very happy that it's going to be a little bit bland after the last year we've had. But one item that I think may create some interest is that the town does own some land on Green Street in Stoneham. And this was actually land that we had a water tower on years and years ago.
I remember the water tower.
That helped with the water pressure in that period side of town.
Right.
Well, that water tower has been gone for, I can't remember it being there. So it's been gone for 20 plus years anyway, maybe more. So the town owns this vacant piece of land there that we don't have any use for. And it happens to be in the town of Stoneham, which is interesting. And about 10 years ago, we did go out to bid to see if anybody wanted to purchase that. We did not get any bids on it at the time. So who knows why that was, but we have been approached about 6 months ago by the town of Stoneham that said, listen, will you guys sell that land so someone will buy it, put some houses on it, 1 or 2 houses, so we can start getting some tax revenue? So I said, sure. Town council agreed, so we actually went out to bid on that land, and the bids will be due, um, geez, I want to think at the end of this month of March. And then the town council will have to determine upon whether or not they are going to accept any of the bids. And because it is town-owned land that is not tax title property, it takes a 2/3 vote of town meeting to sell that property. So those votes are always very interesting. I mean, it happened when we sold the Montrose School, 2/3 vote. Franklin School, 2/3 vote. In those instances, however, you had a lot of townspeople that, maybe wanted to keep the Franklin School for whatever reason, or lived in the area, or were afraid of what it would become. People wanted to keep the Montrose School, and lived in the area. In this case, it's not in Wakefield. This area is vacant right now. It can only be used, in my opinion, for a one or maybe two families. Of course, I guess someone could buy it and put a 40B there, but I don't think it's conducive to that. So in any event, it is in stone. So that ought to be an interesting article, but I don't think it should generate the same angst that some of those other items do when it's in our own backyard, so to speak. And
Sure.
Showing is for it. So we'll have to find out what sort of bids we get on that. And the town council may decide, no, we should hold on to it if we don't get any bids that we think are worthwhile. So to me, that might be a little bit of an interesting concept.
I think it may generate some discussion too.
Yeah, it'll generate some discussion.
Yeah.
But you know what? At the bottom, we'll see what happens. One of the other items that may have a little bit of discussion is we have a general bylaw right now regarding fingerprinting based on criminal record to check the criminal record and background checks. Right now, we fingerprint every year dealers in junk, secondhand articles and antiques, Class 2 motor vehicle licenses, taxi operators, and other areas. So the police chief has been looking at this, and because of other resources that he has and other information he gets, particularly in secondhand articles, dealing with secondhand articles, they need to report all those to him, to the police department. Anyway, the yearly fingerprinting of these dealers in this area really is getting to be a little onerous on the police department, and it costs money for the applicant. So the police chief has asked that we change that bylaw and say, you know what, if you're getting a Class 2 license, and particularly those that don't sell them, they go to the auctions, they buy them, and then they don't have a display spot. Can we stop having that burden on their police department? They've got enough issues going on without having a fingerprint, 30 secondhand dealer's license that never does anything in town. So those bylaw changes always have a little bit of discussion in there. So I think that will be one that might generate a little bit of discussion as well. Another item that will be coming up is school department is looking to supplement their budget this year for special education costs. And the townspeople may recall that a number of years ago, we set up a special education stabilization fund for exactly this purpose. You don't know during the year if you're the school department, you don't know if someone's going to move into the community after the budget is set that needs outplacement for special education. You don't know if someone is tested during the year that needs some specialty, and that could really throw their budget completely off. So years ago, school department came to the finance committee and asked, can we set up a special education stabilization fund, which is exactly what is that for? The town wisely put $500,000 in it, and there's probably $510,000 in there now because of interest that stays with that article. So the school department will be looking to use about $250,000 to pay for those services.
Right.
Perfectly legitimate, perfectly good use of that money. And then hopefully come fall, maybe we'll replenish it so it's there for the next time. So that's an interesting vote, and that'll take a two-thirds vote of town meeting. So anytime you have a 2/3 vote, to me, that's always kind of an interesting conundrum, right? You know,
It does make for interesting debate, quite often.
it does. So, and I think that, and hopefully we'll have enough information out there that what a special education stabilization account was there to for exactly this purpose. It's why we created it. It's already money that's set aside for this purpose.
Right.
We should use it for that.
But that's a good opportunity to let especially newer families in Wakefield know about some of these funding things that we have that don't actually get talked about very much.
And I think they really are indicative of a thoughtful community that wants to make sure we take care of people. So, that's there for that purpose.
Absolutely.
So I'm really pleased with it. There is another general bylaw that will actually, I think, generate quite a bit of discussion. And that is the adoption of the stretch energy code by the town of Wakefield. And what that is a it's an opt-in by the town, and it's a general bylaw, so it's a 50%, 50.1 wins, not 2/3. And this is to make sure that new construction, the key being new construction of single-family homes, and additions, new construction of commercial property and additions to commercial property of a certain size meet the new energy code for purposes of energy conservation and efficiency, what have you. Many communities have already adopted it. I want to say maybe 200 communities have adopted it in Massachusetts already. It's good government. It's good for the planet. And what it also does is it allows the town of Wakefield to be eligible for more and more grants surrounding energy efficiency than we are right now because we have not adopted the stretch code. So
Right.
I do know that the Environmental Sustainability Committee is really high on this article. It will be either sponsored by them or possibly by the town council. The Massachusetts Department of Energy is very high on communities adopting this, not only because so they can get grants, but because we'll be more efficient and conserve energy. And let's face it, reliance on fossil fuels and what have you really isn't the best thing in the world for the town.
Right. But then my question, and maybe other people's question about this, would be most of the building that's going on in Wakefield at this time isn't single family or commercial, it's multifamily, multi-units.
And most of them are already following this anyway.
Oh, they are.
Yeah. And they should be, because it makes their building more efficient and what have you. And in the long run, it helps them if they're building it for an apartment for an investment. It helps them in energy costs and their tenants in energy costs. Or if they're selling it for condos, it's good for the condominium owner. So,
but I think the question comes up: why are they not included in as one of the?
Oh, well, no, I think that they would, because they come under commercial, so they would.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is an in for them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
And many communities around us have it, so it's not something that's new, or it's been adopted by many communities.
Right. We only have a few minutes left, so we'll leave zoning to part 3 next month. But that one's always the fun one anyway. But outside of zoning, the 2 downtown projects.
Okay.
Okay. Is any of that coming up in annual town meeting this year, or is that still to be decided?
You're talking about which 2 projects are you talking about?
There's the changing of the downtown itself with the parking and everything else.
Yeah. That will not be on this agenda.
That's still out in the future.
That's still out in the future. Yeah.
Okay.
What will happen with that is that in August or September, there will be a public hearing held by Mass Department of Transportation that will talk about this project in the downtown. And then should that go positive, and I think it will, and should they be positive, we may have to come back to get to that final design stage. So there may be some money for that. And so that's the only thing that will happen there. What was the other project you were thinking of?
There was another Wakefield Access or Wakefield that there were two projects that were kind of competing with each other's for people's attention. The downtown one being the main one that most of us have been kind of watching.
Oh, the other Envision project?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there's the Envision for the downtown, and there's Wakefield Vision 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It gets a little confusing with similar names, I'll tell you.
Yeah, Wakefield Vision 2030 is still in the information gathering stage and what have you, and that would really be more looking at on master planning and things like that. So there may be some master planning things coming up in November.
Right.
However, I'm hoping to cover any cost in that through grants. So, but who knows?
And then the third downtown project, which has kind of fallen off most people's radar, is the Arts District.
Yes.
The Albion Street Arts District. Where does that stand at this stage?
Well, the bathrooms are in, the handicap bathrooms are in. We are looking to creating a handicapped, this is the Albion Cultural Exchange, a handicapped access to that building, most likely in the back, in the parking lot area. Just because the front of that building would be such where you'd have big ramps and it would take away from the building to do it. The larger project in there is how do we access fully accessible access to second floor, okay? Because that's a perfect area for writer areas, art studios, things like that could then maybe feed to what we show in the gallery space. So that we actually have some grant applications in on that, and one of them is under the underutilized property program. That would help with a elevator access to the second floor. So stay tuned on that one. We'll hear.
There was also the larger project of designating that section of Albion Street as the Wakefield Arts District.
Yeah, that's kind of we're going to see Albion Street change physically over the next summer, or by this summer, I should say. So designation that is probably not so much of a town meeting issue, but more of kind of a town council, branding and how we call it. So
right. And just for miscellaneous things, I see that we're stealing businesses from Malden now.
Oh, what did we steal from Malden?
Hobby Bunker.
Oh, they're coming here. Are they going to North Ave?
Albion Street.
Oh, great. I didn't even know that. You scoop up on me. What location?
I think it's 103. It's the long empty building farther down.
Okay, great.
And from what I understand, they've been in Malden for
forever,
ages.
Yeah.
And their building is being renovated. The owners were not interested in leases. And I guess real estate in downtown Malden has gone through the roof, which completely blows my mind. So they found a space on Albion Street and they're coming to Wakefield and opening in April.
That's great. That's a great business. I think that's a real niche for them. People came all over to go to their location in Malden. That's exactly what we want, is items like that. A destination place to go to.
And it's been a long time since Wakefield has had a hobby shop.
Yeah.
Since AAA closed.
Going back to AAA on Albion Street in the good old days.
Yep. So it's kind of coming full circle.
That's great. Wonderful.
Yep.
Wonderful.
So people can watch, I guess, early next month is their target.
Great. Absolutely great.
Good to see businesses coming in.
It certainly is.
But I think that'll cover it for this show. We'll pick up with part 3 next month on zoning. Okay. And by that time, we probably will know a little more about what's going on anyway.
We will, yeah.
And so in the meantime, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.